Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're unpacking a hidden medical mystery that quietly drives our everyday choices. Have you ever wondered why it's just so incredibly hard to say no to sweets, even when you absolutely know you should? In this explainer, we're diving straight into the biological mechanics of sugar addiction. We'll examine how it literally rewires our brains, the surprising places these sugars hide, and the intense, mindset-shifting strategies you actually need to truly master your own cravings. It is a completely captivating look at human biology and psychology, so let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive right into this roadmap. First up, 1. The dopamine trap. Then, 2. Whose infant warning? Followed by 3. The bread disguise. We'll look at 4. Addiction comparisons. 5. Quitting cold turkey. And finally, 6. Visualizing success. We are going from understanding a core biological problem straight to actionable life solutions.
All right, part 1, the dopamine trap. Let's explore exactly how our brains are chemically hijacked by everyday sweets well before we even take a single bite. So, why do we stare at vending machines for so long without actually buying anything? I mean, you've probably done it, right? Or maybe you've seen someone else doing it, just standing there, staring at all the colorful drink options, agonizing over whether to get a soda, a juice, or an energy drink. The person behind you is waiting, but you just can't look away. It's a highly relatable, totally human behavior, but there is actually a really complex neuroscience concept at play here. The answer? Dopamine. It's the neurotransmitter that basically runs your brain's reward center. But here is the wild part. The source argues that dopamine triggers just by looking at or deciding on sugary items. One practitioner even noted a patient trying to quit sugar who would go to the supermarket every single day just to touch and smell the fruit. They weren't eating it, but they were feeding a subconscious dopamine loop simply through anticipation. Your brain literally rewards the buildup. Section 2, whose infant warning? Because this dopamine trap, it begins much, much earlier in life than you might think. Just look at the 2023 World Health Organization guidelines regarding complementary feeding for infants aged 6 to 23 months. The directive is incredibly strict. No added triggers, no sugar-sweetened beverages, and crucially, no non-sugar sweeteners. Global health authorities view this early developmental period very seriously. The really surprising detail here is that even zero-calorie non-sugar sweeteners are completely restricted. Why? Because the goal isn't just about cutting calories. It's to prevent an infant from building a neurological preference for sweet tastes in the first place. And this brings us to a vital point. Taste preferences can become heavily fixed by age 13. That makes early childhood diets absolutely critical for lifelong health. The source claims that if you feed sweets to toddlers, especially when they're crying or in a rebellious phase, their developing brains learn to rely on that specific dopamine hit to soothe emotional irritation. If a child learns early on that a sugary snack is the cure for frustration, that biological hardwiring can become incredibly difficult to undo once they reach adulthood. Which brings us to part 3, the bread disguise. And this brilliantly illustrates how these addictive ingredients hide in plain sight right at your local grocery store. Think about a loaf of premium commercial bread. You'd expect wheat flour, yeast, maybe salt and water, right? But look at what else is hiding inside that dough. Sugars, margarine, skim milk powder, emulsifiers. It raises a massive question. Why on earth does a daily staple require added sugars and margarine alongside things like vitamin C, which in this case just acts as an antioxidant to preserve those added dairy and sugar elements? Based on that exact ingredient list, some experts take a rather provocative stance. They argue that heavily processed commercial bread is not really bread at all. It is essentially a sweet pastry, literally a dessert, disguised as a daily staple. If you're eating this for breakfast, you are unknowingly triggering that dopamine reward system right at the very start of your day. Moving into section 4, addiction comparisons. Let's transition to what might be the source's most intense and controversial argument. If you compare stimulants, alcohol, gambling, and sugar side by side, a pretty startling pattern emerges. According to the literature reviewed by the source, all 4 trigger significant dopamine release in the brain's reward center. Now, while stimulants and severe alcohol abuse have well-documented intense physical withdrawal symptoms, the argument here is that sugar also exhibits real withdrawal symptoms and severe cravings in heavily dependent individuals. Even though sugar addiction isn't a formal psychiatric diagnosis, the claim is that the neurological mechanics, the intense cravings, and the dopamine loop function incredibly similarly to legally recognized substance dependencies.
Expanding on this, practitioners share some highly specific and frankly extreme anecdotal cases from their clinics. They describe situations where multi-generational high-sugar diets, think a grandmother, mother, and child all relying heavily on sweet pastries for their daily meals, are allegedly linked to severe mental health conditions, including schizophrenia in the parent and severe ADHD in the child. Now, we are just neutrally reporting these claims here to illustrate just how deeply some believe dietary sugars can disrupt brain chemistry across generations. Section 5. Quitting cold turkey. So the crucial point is, how do you actually break free from this cycle?
When it comes to quitting, the narrative presents two very contrasting approaches. On one side, you have gradual reduction. The argument is that this absolutely fails because allowing yourself just a little bit keeps those dopamine cravings alive, which inevitably leads to a relapse. On the other side is quitting cold turkey. Completely severing the intake is presented as the only real way to stop the dopamine loop, which eventually removes the physical desire entirely over a period of a few months.
The commitment demanded here is intense. The immediate action required for patients trying to recover is this. Go home today, open your fridge, and throw away all sweets. And yes, even sweet fruits. Do not wait until tomorrow. Postponing it just feeds the addiction. Furthermore, for severe sugar addicts, trying to use legal sweet seasonings like Japanese mirin or sweet shiokoji will only sabotage recovery. Because your brain doesn't care if the sugar is artisanal or natural, it just wants the dopamine.
To really illustrate the physical benefits of this extreme cold turkey approach, the source shares a specific success story. A young woman who worked at a daycare was suffering from absolutely debilitating menstrual cramps, taking whole boxes of painkillers every single month just to cope. After abruptly and completely quitting sugar and dairy, she reported that her severe cramps completely vanished. It tangibly illustrates the kind of systemic physical inflammation that the source associates with a high-sugar diet. And our final section, number 6, visualizing success. Quitting something cold turkey is incredibly hard, so let's shift to an empowering framework for conquering this. To tackle daunting personal challenges like this, the source uses a fascinating historical metaphor. It's a legendary Japanese baseball match between the Giants and the Tigers, famously attended by the emperor himself. As you can imagine, the pressure on the players was absolutely astronomical.
Here's how two key players handled that massive pressure. Pitcher Murayama, he spent the entire night agonizing over the fear of failure. Terrified of historical embarrassment in front of the emperor, he literally lost sleep to anxiety. On the other hand, batter Nagashima, who had actually been in a massive slump, spent the night excitedly visualizing himself hitting a game-winning home run. He pre-celebrated his own success. And what happened the next day? Nagashima hit a miraculous game-winning walk-off home run against Murayama. The player who actively visualized success was the one who achieved it.
So this distills down into 3 practical steps for anyone trying to change their life. Step 1, stop worrying about past failures. Just stop. Step 2, formulate a concrete countermeasure, meaning if you make a mistake, figure out practically how to avoid it next time. Step 3, visualize a successful outcome and celebrate it in your mind. Prolonged worry simply wastes your precious, limited lifespan without actually solving the underlying problem. Now, why does this matter in an explainer about sugar addiction? Because channeling your energy into positive visualization rather than anxiety is the ultimate tool for enforcing difficult boundaries. If you focus on how miserable it is to give up your favorite bread or sweet drink, you will probably fail. But if you visualize yourself healthy, free of pain, and mastering your own cravings, you give yourself the psychological armor you need to actually stick to that cold turkey approach. We've covered the biology of the dopamine trap, the hidden sugars in our everyday foods, and the sheer power of shifting our mindset. So I want to leave you with this question. If dopamine silently drives our hidden cravings, what is one everyday habit you can rethink today to regain mastery over your own mind? Take a look in your fridge, observe your habits at the vending machine, and take control of your own biology. Thanks for exploring this fascinating explainer with me, and I'll catch you next time.